Alright guys, so here's a plan. This is my new 1993-80 series, and I'm going to attempt to make a wheel carrier for this using just basic tools, nothing fancy, no laser cutting, no folding, and see if we can come up with a professional job. Okay, so the first step I've decided to do is to make a template out of some Lexan that I pulled out of a bin at work just to get those curves, and also having the Lexans handy just to give me a brief outline of what the existing bumper is. I'm sure I probably could have done this with the ply, but with the see-through I think this will just make life a little bit easier for us going ahead. Next step I think will be basically to start ripping off the old bumper and seeing how that goes. So we've stripped everything off now. It took me about 2 hours. There's nothing terribly tricky about it, except for the fact that I had a few rusty bolts. And as far as the mounting is concerned, I'm definitely going to use those 4 bolts that are also going to be holding up the tow bar partly. And I'm definitely going to try and use something along this beam here, but as you can see I had a lot of trouble with one of those bolts, and I definitely got the other 2 as well, where I've basically snapped the 2 bolts off. So I'm either going to have to start again or get some easy outs or something. But yeah, that's definitely going to be another mounting point as well. And the other issue I've got here is now with the mud flaps, I need to somehow integrate what I build into that as well. So yeah, it should be a bit of fun. Let's see what I come up with. Okay, so here we are in my little workshop out the backyard. So what I wanted to start with was some 100 by 150 angle iron, but most of that stuff I believe starts at about 6 to 8 mil thickness, which I think is way too heavy for what we're trying to build here. So I've managed to find this piece of box section which is 4 mil thick, which I think is a good thickness, and it's 100 by 200 millimeters, and I think it's actually going to work out better. I'm going to cut this down to about 130 mil 100 angle, and we'll end up with this nice radius on the shown areas, which I think is probably going to look better than the sharp edge I would have ended up with a bit of angle iron. Okay, so I've cut that box section into the angle and the right dimensions that I wanted, and I've folded one side so far. I decided to do the fold in 2 parts just to give it a bit of more smooth transition. So that's one side tacked up. I've made the cuts in the other side here, so yeah, time to bend up that side, weld it all up, and then we'll hit it with the template and see how we're going. Just to show the process a little bit clearer, I've just basically used some ratchet strapping, help me get the bend on, give it a tack, and off we go. So now we're all welded up, and I've just cleaned it up as well. I had to spend a lot of time bending it back into square. The ends were splayed out a little bit, so I had to do a little bit of clamping and bending and whatnot, but I've got that all sitting pretty flat on this table, which is pretty flat as well, so that'll give us a good chance to start off straight at least. So yeah, coming along now. Rule number 1, measure twice, cut once. Luckily only a minor disaster. That's where I started, and something told me in the back of my head to stop. That's where I need to be. We'll weld that up and fix it up. Okay, so we've used a template to get our basic shape. I drilled those 4 mounting holes, and I've just basically been on and off the car about a dozen times just getting the shape right, making sure it's not kicking up or down. And then I made some plates up for those other 4 holes there and there. I ended up tacking them while it was bolted to the car just to make sure everything was right. Also with those holes that I've picked up, they were the ones where I broke those bolts, so I just ended up cutting the nuts off and re-welding new captive nuts on the car, and that's gone well as well, so we're getting there. This is a wheel carrier kit I bought from a place called Huntsman Products for under $80. You get the axle, all the bits and pieces, and the hinge. Most importantly, that big piece there is weldable material. It's not tool steel, so it won't crack or anything nasty like that, and it's rated to 700 kilos, so rather than mucking around with, you know, bits and bobs, for that price can't really go wrong. Okay, so I've been on and off the car a couple of times and we've got that sitting nice and square with the vehicle. I had to adjust it a few times because square to the bar wasn't square to what it is when it's on the car. And I'm just starting my arm now. I've done the cutout for the sleeve and I'm using slightly larger material than the actual sleeve itself, so I had to do a little bit of a tricky cut there and weld that up. So coming along nicely now. Right, so we got the arm tacked in place where it needs to be, so that's looking pretty good at the moment. And I'm just working on these little side pieces here. I used the template again just to make it look a bit better, so that's just going to go in there like that to cover up some business. So I'll do that to both sides, and hopefully after I've fabricated them, this should be the last time that this has to come off the car and go back in the shed again. I'm also going to do some recesses in the corners there for the lights, which I picked up today. So yeah, should be able to rip all that off and get that done, and that should be it for the bottom part of the bar. Alright, so these flashings are in. I sort of welded them and smoothed it out there to get a nice transition going on the seam part. Most of it's welded up. At the moment I'm just doing the final things that I've got to do. I've done one recess there for my lights, so that's recessed in fairly well, so it should be nice and protected. Just got to work on that other side there and get this latch in place, and then we are done. Okay, final bit of welding here on the beam. Got the wheel carrier set up, just did a cut and a bend over of that tube there. Got some bracing there. I've slotted the holes to locate the wheel, just in case I change my wheel size or I'm going to be carrying a flat, so that should suffice for all situations. I'm going to have the wheel sitting on these two beams, so there's not too much of a torsion sort of effect on that join there. I've also welded in a little pin with a spring to hold it at 90 degrees when I've got the gate open. And here's my double jerry can holder, which I'm just working on now. So I'm just going to weld this up, add a few more bits and paint it, and we should be totally done.